Hello, I'm the awesome Tutor, and today we're going to be looking at answering a question on exchange rates. We're going to look at part A. Assess factors that influence the exchange rate of a currency. If you remember my previous video, I went through the theory and the content which will cover this question. Now you always need to read this part here, because it not only gives you a bit of application to use in your answer, but it also gets you thinking about how to answer this question. So in 2016, the US president promised to impose tariffs on imports of Mexico's manufactured goods. This led to uncertainty, resulting in a 20% fall in the value of the Mexican currency, the peso. Okay? 20% fall in the value of the Mexican currency, the peso. That is a fall in the exchange rate. So, what factor can influence the exchange rate of a currency? Here we have tariffs. Tariffs on imports. Why? Because with tariffs on imports, the price of imports increases. So, let's look at this from the point of view of Mexico. US is imposing tariffs on Mexico's exports. Okay? So, the exports of Mexico into the US are going to now cost more because the tariffs increase their prices. So that means that with an increase in the price of Mexico's exports, there will be a decrease in demand for Mexico's exports. And what does that do? It depreciates the exchange rate. Okay, so let's look at my answer. Now, just one other thing. As you can see in part A, it doesn't say that you specifically have to relate your answer to Mexico. In part B, it does. So in part A, I don't think that I mentioned the stuff that's written here. But in the exam, you should do that. So start always with a mini introduction, usually defining the key terms of the question. Exchange rates measure the value of one currency in comparison to another. There are multiple factors which influence the exchange rate of a currency, both short-term and long-term. Immediately, I'm setting out a good evaluation point. There are short-term factors and long-term factors. That is evaluation. Okay? So taking the US as a prime example, it has a highly overvalued exchange rate. And this is mainly due to the petrodollar system. Now what I'm doing here is I'm using application. And application really makes your answer stand out. And it gives you much higher marks. It pushes you into level 5. Now what the petrodollar system is that oil all around the world has to be sold in dollars. Okay? The US reached an agreement with Saudi Arabia, I think somewhere in 1973, where oil has to be sold in the dollar. So remember from my previous video on the factors influencing the exchange rates, if demand for your exports increases, demand for your currency increases because you need the other country's currency in order to buy its exports. But here, oil is sold in the dollar no matter which country sells it or which country buys it. So if demand for oil increases, demand for the currency in which oil is sold increases. You need the dollar to buy oil. So demand for oil increases, demand for the dollar increases. So that's why the US has a highly overvalued exchange rate, because of the petrodollar system. So since oil is sold internationally with the dollar, this generates artificial demand for the US currency on the foreign exchange market, as shown below. See, it's very good to use diagrams in your essay, and that will allow you to do diagrammatic analysis, which will push your answer up. As you can see, the demand for the dollar shifts right from D to D1, moving the equilibrium from point A to point B. This has significant ramifications as it appreciates the exchange rate of the dollar from P to P1. Since its inception in 1973, the petrodollar system has been a significant long-term factor in maintaining the strength of the dollar's exchange rate. Here I'm having a bit of evaluation, long-term, short-term, significance, ranking the factors. There are also political reasons which may influence a currency's exchange rate. For instance, in 2014 there was a run on the Russian currency, the ruble. Again, you see here I'm using application points. My entire answer is based on application. It's not, here's a theoretical point, here's an example of it. Application is woven into my answer, integrated into it. And if you can answer a question like this, it'll really push your marks up. So this is because the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2014 significantly decreased speculator confidence in the currency. So speculators are people that move their money to and from a country, to and from a currency. So they exchange currencies by predicting appreciation and depreciation in currencies. So they want to exchange one currency for another in order to make a profit. And they predict when a currency will appreciate or when a currency will depreciate. Okay? And this leads to massive capital flight. So with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, confidence in the Russian ruble significantly decreased. So not many people are exchanging their currency for the ruble because they don't believe they're going to get a significant return on it. Okay, these are the speculators I'm talking about. So this leads to massive capital flight, money leaving the country, the ruble leaving the Russian country and being exchanged for other currencies. However, there were also economic factors relating to trade, as US sanctions meant that the value of Russian exports significantly decreased, leading to a reduction in net exports. The combined effect of these factors meant that the supply of the Russian ruble increased and demand for the ruble decreased, as shown in the following diagram. So the political factor decreased speculator confidence, leading to capital flight, money leaving the country. What that does is it increases supply of the ruble on the foreign exchange market. The US sanctions, by reducing net exports of Russia, that means that less people are demanding the Russian currency in order to buy the Russian exports. So less exports means less demand for the ruble. So as I said here, supply and demand. Both of these are affected. So as you can see, this has led to significant depreciation in the exchange rate of the ruble, decreasing from P to P1. In fact, after 2014, the ruble depreciated by 50% against the US dollar within 1 year. You don't really need to use specific statistics like these in the exam, but more so general application points, like as I said with the Russian ruble and the invasion of Ukraine. You don't need specific stats and figures. That's not going to add value to your answer unless you use it properly. So you don't need necessarily to memorize statistics. In conclusion, conclusions are very good for summarizing your answer as well as including generic evaluation points, which will push the mark of your answer up. So in conclusion, it is clear that there are many factors affecting the exchange rate of a currency, both demand side and supply side. However, different countries have different reasons for what affects their exchange rate. A common evaluation point: different countries, different reasons. For the US dollar, it is mainly the long-term reason of the petrodollar system. However, for currencies like the Russian ruble, it is mainly short-term reasons like speculator confidence and influenced by political tensions. So, on face value, it looks like I've only used 2 points, right? 2 application points, 2 theoretical points. No. I've used more than that. Look, I've talked about the petrodollar system. That's one factor, influencing demand for the US dollar. I've talked about speculator confidence and political factors. That's another one. I've also talked about sanctions. Like they give here on Mexico, tariffs on Mexico's exports. That has a similar effect to what I talked about here with US sanctions on Russian exports. Because with the decrease in exports, because their price increases, that means there's a decrease in demand for the country's currency. So that's another factor I talked about. So all in all, I think I talked about 3 points. And you don't need that many points. 2 or 3 points really developed will get you those high marks. So as you can see, I got 14 out of 15 on that at level 5. What makes your answer stand out? Application. If you don't have application, your answer will not stand out. It will be a textbook answer, it will be a theoretical answer, and examiners are going to see hundreds of those. You want your answer to stand out. So go read economic articles, go research some facts and important economic events to add to your application points. Because that's really what's going to determine whether you get the A or the A star. And I'm sure all of you want to get an A star. Okay? This has been the Awesome Tutor. Bye.